Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. So today I'd like to discuss a concern that comes from John Bumstead, an amazing electronics recycler. He's had a business called Roadkill Inc. for over 8 years. He is a genuinely great recycler, great business, and a great dude. We've had him on the channel before to talk about Amazon keeping independent sellers from being able to sell refurbished products on their platform anymore, and how eBay has also started to follow suit with this anti-competitive behavior, where they work together with the manufacturers of the devices and come up with these agreements that don't allow independents or third parties to be able to sell refurbished products on their platform, which just so happens to make it more convenient for you to buy a new one from them, which is just lovely how that works out. And today I'd like to discuss activation locks and his take on what is going on with the new Macbooks. And I hope to have him on the channel again soon to be able to discuss this in an interview kind of format. So he said on Twitter, "Hey, Tim Cook and Apple, why have you condemned this beautiful M1 MacBook and millions like it to death? Its battery only has 4 load cycles and it wants to live. As I predicted years ago, activation lock T2 MacBooks are flooding into recyclers. 15 of these are 2020 M1 MacBooks. Recyclers willing to violate the R2 cert sell to uncertified barbarians like me who use them for parts, but most just scrap them due to liability paranoia, meaning that these machines, instead of actually being used for parts, get literally ground up into dust." As he says in the next tweet, "How many of you would like to buy a 2-year-old M1 MacBook? Too bad, because your local recycler just took out all of the activation lock logic boards and ground them into carcinogenic dust, which is an insane waste." As he has said in quotes to other journalistic institutions, you can't even boot locked 2018 MacBooks to an external device because by default the MacBook security app disables external booting. So if this were something that was just about the security of the data on the device or something like that, let's just say that we completely ignore the internal drive inside the device because Apple would argue that this is for security. You can't even boot into an external drive. So even if you have an external drive with your own operating system, you used to be able to hold down Option and boot off of it, even if you didn't know the password or have the information for the drive inside the machine. Now that's not doable. He says we're seeing quantity come through because companies with internal 3-year product cycles are starting to dump their 2018 and 2019s, and inevitably a lot of those are locked. Often, the previous owners are corporations or schools who buy and sell the machines in bulk and aren't interested in helping recyclers or refurbishers unlock them. Previous owners do not return phone calls, and large corporations that dump 3,000 machines assume that they have been destroyed. So it's critical that we have a solution that is not dependent upon the previous owner approving, Bumstead said. And after all, we have property rights, so the original owner is not the current owner and does not technically have a right to condemn to death that which is no longer their property, which I think is true. Now, there are many people that are going to say, well, what about if somebody steals it? If somebody steals my device, I don't want somebody else to be able to use it. I want to be able to lock it so that they can't use it. And point taken. But if that was what this was actually about, then we would see a system that would allow legal owners of devices that have been properly sold, that have not been stolen, to be able to unlock these devices. If this were actually about security and safety and not about just making it easier for you to buy a new one because there's less stuff on the used market. And again, you have to keep in mind, Apple has worked with Amazon to get a lot of the refurbished products that third parties sell off of their platform. They're now working with eBay to get less refurbished items on the platform unless they're being sold by authorized distributors. They are slowly culling the used and refurbished market on these online marketplaces that have consolidated to the point where it's where most people wind up buying their stuff. Now, as John Bumstead says here, when we come upon a locked machine that was legally acquired, we should be able to log into our Apple account, enter the serial number and any given information, then click a button and submit the machine to Apple for unlocking. Then Apple could explore its records, query the original owner if it wants, and then at the end of the day, if there are no red flags and the original owner doesn't protest, the device should be auto-unlocked. This is something that I used to do as a business because people would come into my store very often and ask for password unlocks on machines. So when you do this, you have to go into the SPI-ROM to get rid of the EFI lock. So what I used to do, because Apple they used to store the iCloud information of the user in plain text in the SPI-ROM. What I would do is I would take their computer, I would read the SPI-ROM, and I would grab the iCloud email from it. And then I would send them an email. "Hi, I'm Lewis from Rossman Repair Group. Somebody just brought a computer into my shop, and this is the serial number of it. Did you actually sell this? Did you recycle this? Did you give this away? Or was this stolen from you?" And most of the time they would say, "Oh yeah, I sold that on Craigslist," or "Oh yeah, I gave it to my cousin and I threw it away." But sometimes people would say, "Oh no, I was sitting down and then when I came back, it was gone." And in those cases, I would arrange them being able to get their device back, to the great aggravation of the thief that came in to get the device unlocked. This is one of the reasons I try to avoid unlocking in general, because unlocking devices, you'll wind up with a lot of bottom-feeding people. This is something I go over in a video that I did about 9 years ago, wiping laptop BIOS and EFI passwords and repairing bad cell phone ESNs and IMEIs. It's something that I don't recommend you make your primary business for a number of different reasons. But that was a method that I could use. I could get their email, and because again, Apple, caring about security as much as they do, would store the iCloud information of the user of the device in plain text in the SPI ROM so that I could easily grab it without having to do anything special. And I would email them and I would say, essentially, this is the serial number, what happened to this computer? And I think that there should be some sort of route for a company that's worth over $1 trillion to be able to allow these devices to be used again rather than be tossed into landfills. And obviously, there's going to be crickets on that for all of the obvious reasons. He says that the progression has been, first you had certifications with unrealistic data destruction requirements, and that caused recyclers to pull drives from machines and sell them without drives. But as of 2016, the drives were embedded in the boards, so they started pulling the boards instead. And now, when they recycle the device, the motherboard, as he says, winds up getting ground up into carcinogenic dust. They are literally shredding the boards to obey the recycling standards, and the ones out there that are willing to violate this R2 certification wind up giving them away to people or selling them with the activation lock boards. As such, I get it. People want their data to be secure. There should be an ability, if a device it can be confirmed to not have been stolen, to be able to type a code into that device and then have it reset itself, like just not just factory reset, but like overwrite the drive, with dev/u random, however long as it takes, to ensure that nobody's ever getting with the original user's data off of that again, so that it can actually be used again rather than be ground up in dust. Now, the other thing that I find disgusting about this when it comes to the R2 certification process and how recyclers are forced to work, even if that's activation locked, I can actually make use of that board for a number of reasons. As I've discussed on this YouTube channel many, many times, there are lots of devices that I would be completely capable of fixing, and the only thing keeping me from fixing it is that I don't have access to the chip to be able to do my job. What you see on screen here is an intercell charging chip. These used to be readily available on older models and are available less and less so in newer models. You have to get this off of a donor board, and the place that you're going to get a donor board from is a recycler. If the recyclers are then forced by their certification, by what they are forced to sign in order to be in business with the manufacturer, to shred those boards, that means that I cannot use that perfectly good chip on that board to fix another customer's product, which is a complete and utter waste. Now, you may ask, why don't I just go to the vendor to buy that chip? It's because I literally can't. I can't show you this Facebook thread here because I no longer have an account, and they require me to have an account to be able to read the comments because Facebook sucks. But I'll leave a link to it down below so all of you with Facebook accounts can see it. This person is asking Renesas Electronics, can you make the ISL 9240 available for purchase? And a representative from Renesas says that they are not allowed to do so. And the reason that they are not allowed to do so is because of the manufacturer. And this is a serious problem. You have companies like Apple that pretend, they greenwash, they pretend to care about the environment, yet every single one of these policies that comes back to safety and security and anti-theft also just so happens to be a policy that winds up in perfectly good products like this that I could make work again or use to make other products make work again affordably. Devices with donor boards I could use to fix other people's products and get their data back when the manufacturer won't, wind up literally getting ground into dust. And so that this company at apple.com/environment can pretend that they're green when in reality so much of what they do fundamentally at its core is not. Again, it is one thing to say, we do not want these machines that wind up getting stolen, getting into the hands of people that are going to sell them, or unscrupulous people. Because, listen, I lived in New York City for 32 years. Are there places out there that would happily unlock machines that were stolen if they had the capability to do so and charge $100 to $200? Yes, it sucks. But the answer to that should not be coming up with a system where even the manufacturer is not able to unlock the device if the person who owned the device initially did not even report it stolen, so that this stuff actually winds up getting ground down into dust rather than used again. And this would not be so disgusting a practice if we lived in a world where when this $3,000 laptop had a bad $5 chip, I could just buy the chip. Don't get me, trust, I would love to live in a world where I love John Bumstead. He's a good dude. He really is. But I'd like to live in a world where I don't have to buy broken donor boards off of him to get chips to do my job. I would like to be able to do what people in every other effing industry are able to do, which is go to a supplier, go here, click here, and just buy the chip that I need to do my job, add to cart, and be able to make my customer happy. But that's not the world that we live in, and that's not the world that Tim Cook is going to allow us to live in, and that's not the world that Kathy Hochul is going to allow us to live in either, with that steaming pile of shit that she calls a right to repair bill that she just recently destroyed. This is the world that we live in, where we live and die by donor parts, that they are not only making it more difficult to actually make work again into normal machines, but after destroying their ability to work again in normal machines, are going out of their way with these new recycling certifications to encourage recyclers to ground down into dust. You don't get to pretend you care about the environment anymore. That is not how this works. You can do one or the other, and I don't care which of the two you do. You can decide that we care about the environment and we're going to make these devices work again and help people that want to make these devices work again, or we don't give a shit about the environment. We care about making money by minimizing the amount of devices on the used market, as we talk about in these two videos I'll link down below, so that you can maximize the customer incentive to purchase a new one. But you don't get to do both. You don't get to do one and claim you're doing the other. In my opinion, Apple doesn't care one way or the other whether or not they stop people from stealing devices. And they don't care one way or another whether somebody who has their device stolen actually gets it back. That's something I went over in this video that I did about 11 years ago before I learned how to comb my hair or put on pants. In all seriousness, in this video, what I'm discussing is a customer that brought a device into our store to be reset. It was very obvious that the customer had stolen it, so we called the police. This person was actually involved in a string of parking garage robberies over a very long period of time and wound up getting arrested and put in prison for it. And the police wanted to return this device to its rightful owner. So they need to get contact information for them. So they go to the Apple store with the device, with the serial number and everything, and they say, we'd like to figure out who this belongs to. Or if you cannot tell us who it belongs to, we would like to give it to you so that you could bring it back to its rightful owner, even if you don't tell us who it belongs to. And they refuse to do that. Not only do they refuse to give the police any information, but they also refuse to take back the device to contact the customer so that they could give that device to the customer so that that customer could get back their computer that was stolen, because Apple does not give two shits of an F about getting people back their devices once they're stolen. They care about you buying a new one. Let's be real. I'll see you all in the next video, and hopefully my cat will as well. For some reason, my cat didn't show up in the chair for this video, which is really bad news for my channel, because when the cat doesn't show up in the chair, I get less viewership, less money, less nice food for the cat, less nice food for the cat. The cat is probably not going to want to show up in the chair because the cat's not going to like me when the cat gets friskies instead of Halo. And then this just becomes a vicious cycle where the cat continues to get shittier food. The cat dislikes me because it's not getting good food, so he comes down less often. It's bad for everybody, but let's hope we can fix this before it spirals out of control. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.